So in light of Prime Minister Netanyahu's visit to America, where he gave that speech to Congress and also met with the president, there have been protests surrounding his visit. But the protests are more extreme, more hostile, more terror celebrating than I've ever already seen before. It's not just that they're hostile to Israel, but it's actually supporting of Hamas, it's supporting of terrorism, and it's so anti-American as well. It's many of the ideologies that we know feed into the anti-Israel camp, but they've shown their true extreme vicious colours even more overtly than ever before. I just want to show you some examples. So here they are. This is in, I believe, Washington, D.C., where the protesters are burning the American flag. Have a watch.
Back up! Back up! Back up! Back up! Burn that shit! 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 Burn that shit!
Just unbelievable, and I want to give you some more examples. I mean, this is the famous Liberty Bell in Philadelphia. Look what it's saying. They've completely defaced it, where it's saying, you know, supporting "Long live the Intifada," free Palestine, and stop the genocide. And look at this, heart Hamas. Hamas is coming. So I don't know if that's a heart, but it says Hamas is coming. Free Gaza, long live the resistance. The most appalling, evil graffiti. But on top of that, on such highly significant, really sacred buildings and objects in the American culture. Here you can see some of the pictures. Here you've got a protester saying, Allah is gathering all the Zionists for the final solution. I mean, just completely unashamed Jew hatred. And here you go, support for, clearly this is support for Hamas. It's unashamed. I want to just reflect on this for a minute, and then before I end this video, I want to show you a video of a journalist and reporter called Azra Nomani, who went to actually find out who are some of these people. And I'll play it for you at the end. Who are these protesters? How's it happening? We know that Iran have been involved in the funding of it, of many of these protesters, and Benjamin Netanyahu even referenced them as Iran's useful idiots. But it's interesting to note that they always say, don't they, that anti-Semitism is the canary in the coal mine. That actually it is the red flag that should signal to a society that you've got a problem, and the things that fuel anti-Semitism will also fuel the downfall generally and moral integrity of a society. We saw that happening in Germany, and look, the people who hate Israel, so too, they're burning the American flag and all the values that represents. These are not people that want to see social cohesion and want to improve the American society. They're looking for its destruction. And it's a sober reminder that those who are working against Israel are part of a cause and an ideology that wants to see the destruction of so many of the great Western institutions. So it's important that people are aware of this, because sometimes perhaps more ignorant people can get whipped up into a belief that the Palestinian cause is entirely innocent, based on a legitimate grievance, and that if only Israel would budge a bit more, then they'd be fine, and they just want their self-determination. We have to be very clear that much as we do want peace, and much as I do believe we will get peace in the end, and that the Jews and Arabs will be best of friends one day, at the moment, you have to deal with the situation as it is. and you have to have peace through strength. And it's very clear that the majority of the Arabs living in Gaza and Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, or the Palestinians, as they have recently come to term themselves over the past few decades, they support this. They support this ideology that simply wants to see Israel's destruction. And that's what it's always been about. Frankly, even before Israel was created, it's always been about the opposition or hostility has been to any Jewish state re-emerging. And so it's useful to see the true colours of this movement, this cause coming out. And we're seeing that not only is it interested in destruction of Israel, it's interested in the destruction of America and basically seeking to impose extreme radical Islamism. That's, throughout the world and certainly throughout the region. That's what dominates a lot of these causes at their core. It's interesting, by the way, because some people who are so focused on Israel activism will talk about, they'll say, we just need to fully stand in the America Western camp and Israel should be very much in the Western image. I actually think that, and I've said this many times in our videos, there is a slightly different path, well, actually a very different path that Israel should be taking to resolve this conflict. Israel's enemies are pushing back and they're speaking in a voice that invokes God. Now, I'm not saying that they're taking God's name in vain with the kind of things that they support and they want. It's appalling the kind of things they invoke God's name and do. But I do think there's an underlying message there, which is that Israel is in a region that is religious-centric, that is God-centric. And they're not impressed by democracy and international law or even groundbreaking technology and secularism. And that actually doesn't even reflect who the Jewish people really are. The Jewish people and Israel has to start digging deeper into our own roots, into our own religious roots, into our own godly roots, understanding the deep depths of wisdom, divine wisdom, in our heritage, which we can share with the world, and which actually the world is crying out to hear, and which actually, I think, our Arab cousins surrounding us will have a lot more time and respect for, given where they're coming from. And so while I wouldn't for one second want to justify anything that the protesters are doing and or excuse them, I do think we can at least take a moment to reflect on the fact that Israel is not the West. Yes, Israel has a great alliance with the West, but Israel is Israel. Israel is God's chosen people, chosen for a divine mission to be his voice to the world, to share his vision for all mankind with the world. And doing that and honing in on that is, in my mind, for sure, the way forward. But I want you now to watch this clip of the students and I don't know if they're students, but the protesters talking about where they're coming from, because it's really interesting to learn about some of the identities of these people, because we often just assume, they're just, ignorant anti-Israel protesters and they've just been whipped up. But there's probably more to it, and it's worth having a look to see what's actually going on.